only do we have a lot to talk about before we even get to AEW Dynamite ups and downs, so let's just get it out the way now. The biggest problem being is that we here at WhatCulture have looked for Adam Cleary, and we can't find him, and we're all just a little bit worried. So it begs the question, who is going to do NXT ups and downs? So it is my pleasure to tell you that my man Gareth, who I'm sure you've seen around the channel, is going to be filling in, and all I ask you to do is treat him with the same respect you treat me. Which means you're just going to call him a bald asshole. Just be welcoming hosts. He's a good guy, he's a good dude. He is going to do a phenomenal job. You can catch him later if you're watching this when it goes live on Thursday. Otherwise, it will just be floating around here on WhatCulture Wrestling. Otherwise, we do have to talk about Retro Ups and Downs, which will be going live tomorrow at 2 p.m. GMT, and you voted for WCW's Bash at the Beach 1996, and thank goodness you did. That's been on the poll for around about 122 years, so finally we can discuss Hulk Hogan turning heel. But that's now in the past, or it's going to be in the future. Let's focus on the present, and let's up those downs for AEW Dynamite. Hangman Page versus Long John Silver kicked off Dynamite this week, and it just made me feel all warm and fuzzy in my tum-tum because it reminds you of some of the stuff that AEW does best. Like the whole storyline with Hangman Adam Page and the Dark Order just been bumbling along, and it's there in the background, it's never taken center stage, but as soon as you do want to shine a light on it, ping, there's your light. They even had a video beforehand where Brody Lee's minions said, "Hey cowboy, we think you're great, we just want you to join us, we're sending you all positive joy and love and cheer and all these things, peaches and cream." Either way, is getting it up. John Silver too, what a damn hero he is, because at one point, he decided rather than try and win a wrestling match, he was just gonna flex, and I just love that thought process. It's like, I could do a move, or I could show off my bicep. Straight away, John Silver became one of my favorite wrestlers, especially because later on, when he was back in control, he just smacked Adam Page right on the ass. He gave him a spanking. There was more to this too, because the commentary team kept pointing out, hey, look at Adam over there. He didn't come to the ring drinking a beer. And while if you don't have any context, that's a very strange statement to make, if you have been watching, you feel like it's all paying off. Honestly, this was ticking boxes left, right, and center. It's not like John didn't have his moments either, because he got out the way of a buckshot Larry at one point, gave Adam Page a Hurricane Rana, and got a really close near fall. Although I did realize at that point, I did not believe at one point that Page was going to lose, but hey ho, what are you going to do? That just proves how well AEW was built in. And then all of that came true because Page did hit the buckshot lariat, down John Silver went, he pinned him to the 1, 2, 3, and the big question now, is the cowboy going to join up with the Dark Order? Because they came out afterwards and they said, look, you used to be associated with the Elite, and we just think they're a massive cult. That really made me chuckle. And wouldn't it make sense if he did join them too? The Dark Order is there for lost souls who have lost direction in their life. And I think that sums up this guy. I'm very intrigued to see where this goes. Kenny Omega promo next. Top stuff. He keeps tying his upcoming match with Jon Moxley into the big war they had last year, but reminding us all that was a garbage match, that was full of weapons and all the stuff that Jon Moxley likes to do. This time, you can leave all of that at home because it's mano a mano, it's one-on-one, and the best damn wrestler is gonna win. And everyone keeps going on about, where's the Kenny Omega I remember from Japan? Well, he's about to bust out, and he's about to become the AEW World Champion. He even finished the damn thing by addressing what John had said last week when talking about fathers and said, oh, by the way, if you want to get into that, my dad could kick the shib out of your dad, which is just the best childhood insult ever. It doesn't even make any sense. Imagine you went to your dad afterwards and went, oh yeah, sorry dad, you got to whip another dad's ass. Be like, I don't want to do that, I've got a bad hip. However, I am now expecting at Double Nothing to see Jon Moxley Sr. versus Kenny Omega Sr. in, of course, a no-holds-barred contest. Darby Allin then set fire to a car as he held the TNT title. Anybody checked on Darby Allin recently? Said, hey Darby, how you doing okay? Like, it had all of Taz's catchphrases and mottos written all over it, and he said those things like, is he gonna set fire to Darby, if you watch these, and you probably don't set fire to Taz. It's a terrible idea. And then talking of Taz, we found out a couple of things. The first being that one, Will Hobbs is no longer called Will Hobbs, he's called Powerhouse Hobbs, which has got to be the greatest name for any new wrestler ever. And 2, he has embraced the Taz method, he's embraced the Taz ways. He was even wearing like an old school Taz singlet, and of course it was orange, because if you're in Team Taz, you flippin' love the colour orange. Taz was also on commentary during all of this, and he was just so good. And then Powerhouse Hobbs kicked the absolute crap out of Lee Johnson. I enjoyed all of this, and it's about to get better. He also finished Lee off with the Power Slam, which now surely has to be called the Powerhouse Power Slam, or the Powerhouse Slam, or the Double P, whatever the hell you want to go with it. And afterwards, Taz came to the ring. He said to Hobbs, "Well done, you've done your job, now you can leave, because I want to address management." And boy, how did he address him. Don't mean he wrote down an address, I meant he spat fire, much like Darby Allin, although he did it much more literally. Because the former ECW champion is pissed that the FTW title means nothing here in All Elite Wrestling, and he doesn't understand why he thinks all of the producers and all the managers are taking the piss. So then out came Cody Rhodes after people had tried to silence Taz's microphone and say, "Look man, you just gotta calm down, we can deal with this. Next week we'll have a tag team match. We'll have a tag team match, your guys versus my guys, I'll team up with Darby Allin, then we can put this to bed. Is that okay?" And Taz went, "No, it is not." Because he felt so insulted by this, he started throwing WWE type barbs at Cody, like, "Oh, I bet you're going to wish me well in my future endeavors." And then when Rhodes replied and said, "Yeah, well, I don't like the color orange, blue is better," Taz lost his mind. That last bit didn't happen. Cody did fire back with the line, though, that Taz's son, who is called Hook, and that rivals Powerhouse Hobbs, is training to become a wrestler, but he's not training with old daddy, oh is he? He's training with Cody, so what does that say about the Taz family? And then you could not believe the look on Taz's face. It was like Cody had just walked up to him and gone and spat right in his eye. Unfortunately, Cody did then make one big mistake because he turned his back to Taz, who locked in the Taz mission, and in his head I bet he transported himself back 20 years. Now look, Taz has been pretty good ever since he arrived in AEW, but my word did he go crazy here. This was a great segment, which once again can probably go in around about 72 directions. And now I'm more pumped for that tag team match, which is coming on the 2nd December show. Winter is coming, which everyone is pimping out as the biggest Dynamite ever. And I, as a stupid fan, totally believe it. The Nightmare family came out for the save, as did Taz's son, who stood side by side of his father. And honestly, this whole thing just leveled up so quickly. I also love it because it's one of these great angles that doesn't need to main event, or just pop up in the middle of the show and you go, "Oh yeah, I'm really enjoying this." And that's what you need when you have a 2-hour or 3-hour or 4-hour or 5-hour show. You need to make sure there's different things that you get excited about, and that's exactly what this did. Oodalally. Eddie Kingston then cut a promo, and let's just ask the machine. Machine, does Eddie Kingston this week know if pro wrestling is a work? Does no do its thing, but bing bing, do the algorithm? The answer is no, because when Eddie Kingston does anything in wrestling, it's not a work, it's not predetermined, it is damn real. Here, he was only saying how disappointed he was in Pentagon and Phoenix, but it was like a mum that had found out that her kids were smoking. It hit me right in the heart, because again, everything Eddie Kingston done is 100% real. We even tied up a loose end because John Moxley approached him afterwards and Eddie went, "Hey man, I didn't attack you last week, that's nothing to do with me." Now you can't trust Eddie Kingston, but John Moxley did, so I guess we're meant to think it was nothing to do with him. Which begs the question, who was it? And talking of following things up from last week's Dynamite, we then had TH2, who were taking on Top Flight. And we had a little bit of a skit on Britt Baker's brand new show, which you should watch, it's quite funny, with TH2, where they were like, "Man, we don't like this brand new tag team, so we're gonna whip their ass." And they did. This was really fun. It was also just a bunch of young dudes proving that they have all the potential in the world, and before anybody says it, yes, there were a few mistakes here, there were a few foibles. Who cares? Why would you focus on that when all of these guys were flying around the ring like majestic birds? I can't do that now. I couldn't do that when I was in my 20s. And look, I'm not going to get younger. That's not a thing. So I'm basically screwed. I'm going to appreciate them for what they are. I mean, at one point, Dante hit a ridiculous looking code red, but unfortunately, Jack Evans did take advantage of that because he took Darius, his partner, and kept him trapped outside the ring. It meant back in the squared circle, and Helico took Dante and locked in, I think it's called the Navarro Death Roll, which is just a bonkers submission, and of course Top Flight had to tap out. But the Navarro Death Roll, that sounds like you're on death row, right? You're on death row, you're about to be executed, and they go, would you like to be electrocuted, or would you like the Navarro Death Roll? You're like, man, just put me in that chair, I don't want to get death rolled by anyone. TH2 continued to beat them up because they are a couple of dicks before the Young Bucks made the save, so now I guess we're going to do a title match between TH2 and the Young Bucks, and I'm alright with that. It's fresh, it's new, it smells good, like bread. Vicky Guerrero was then speaking on behalf of Nyla Rose, as that's her whole job. Still not 100% sure the beast needs it, but hey, at least they got a little bit on television. Vicky was also focusing on nepotism and comparing that to how Brandi Rhodes got her spot in the company, and went, so it's not just Jade Cargill who wants to see you fall, I want to see you fall, and of course Nyla Rose, she wants to see you fall. I don't really get what's going on here, or how this is eventually going to tie into Shaq, but at least we do know that now Nyla, Jade, and Vicky don't like Brandi. I mean, we have that information. And the real shame is that Nyla Rose isn't called Lila Rose, because then you could take all these three names and you could abbreviate them and it would be JVL. I mean, that's the worst joke I've ever told. It doesn't even work, but that's just where my brain is today. Let's move on. We then had a video package featuring the return of FTR. They are so upset and they are so devastated that they did lose their championship to the Young Bucks. They don't even care that they got all the praise. If they ain't the champions, then they are nothing. Daddy Tully Blanchard said it'll be okay though, because it's their destiny to win them back, and that eventually we'll all have to fear the revelation. Don't know what that means, unless of course the reveal is going to be them in a brand new group. Following this was Jake Hager and Chris Jericho taking on Christopher Daniels and Frankie Kazarian, with the very nice tidbit that even though Jericho and Christopher Daniels combined have been wrestling for 58 years, they have never even touched in a wrestling ring. So this was kind of like history, and look at the people involved. It was just good. And the entire inner circle was at ringside, so you just knew they were going to be asshats, which they did. Ortiz kept grabbing people's feet and tripping them up, and MJF was just being MJF. What did come across though, is that the inner circle fell up their back. They're now a dominating group once more. Who knows where it's gonna go? There was no way this was gonna end clean, because there were so many people out there. It was like a damn lumberjack match, which was true when MJF put on his Dynamite diamond ring and he punched Christopher Daniels right in the face, and Chris Jericho gave him the Judas effect. Down he went, 1, 2, 3, Le Champion got the win. Kaz took out Maxwell afterwards because he was quite upset, understandably, but I think he forgot about the 54,791 people that were out there, and before long, he too was having his ass whipped. Then Scorpio Sky came out with a chair to make the save, and I really hope we don't forget about Scorpio Sky versus Shawn Spears, because when we saw it on Dynamite, Shawn Spears cheated to win. Scorpio shouldn't let that lie. Alright, Kate, so Miro and Kip Sabian and Penelope Ford were going to debut some kind of brand new video game segment on Dynamite, and that's what we cut to here, when Orange Cassidy turned up. And Miro was just so beside himself that he had done this, he lost his mind, he was going to beat him up until the best friends came here, and they did that to Miro and Kip Sabian instead. I mean, they even threw Kip into a porta potty, and the former Rusev was just so livid about all of this, he knocked a cameraman over going, "Get out of my way, get out of my way." And look, all of this is fine, but the feud is just a little bit meandering at this stage, because it's not really going anywhere. They just keep falling out each and every week. So what I hope is going to happen, I hope that we are going to get the big tag team match on Winter is Coming Dynamite, the biggest Dynamite ever, and then we can just put this to bed. It's not bad, but it's also not great. It's kind of just there. I don't really get it. And what we definitely are getting next week is the Dynamite Battle Royal. So many people were messaging me this week going, "Simon, AEW promised they were going to do this yearly, and I haven't seen one advert." Well, look, here it is. Patience is a virtue. I also think MJF is going to be in it. I kind of think he should win it again. AEW made a contract signing interesting. So given what they did do last week and what WWE did between Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns, from now on, I want to see invention and I want to see creativity if you do feel the need to do a contract signing. It is getting it up. Because there wasn't the usual nonsense here. And in fact, as Kenny Omega was making his big grand entrance and he was doing the silhouette bit, some man from nowhere started beating him up, and what a cool visual that was. Now, of course, it was Jon Moxley, but wasn't it fun at first to pretend it was someone else? No, I mean, it was pretty damn clear. Moxley then dragged Kenny Omega's ass to the ring and gave him a paradigm shift on the title. And if you thought to yourself, well, that looked awfully the same as to when last year when Kenny Omega had the same move through the table, that was the whole point. It was a visual callback to make you feel like you're part of a special club. John then took the microphone and he just went off on one. Whoever did attack him last week did a terrible job, because look, I'm still here. And when it comes to Kenny Omega, this is a one and done. He's going to bring his all. Kenny better bring his all and bring this cleaner character that everyone keeps going on about. But if he fails, see you later, pal. That's to the back of the line. He then so casually and coolly turned to Tony Schiavone, signed the deal and went, "Thanks, Tony." Jon Moxley is one of the best characters of 2020 and maybe even the Wrestler of the Year. He also threw in the Winter is Coming tagline, because that's just what wrestlers do. They can't help themselves. And some have said I wanted to see a big face-off. I disagree with that entirely. This has felt completely different to most main event feuds, while still feeling like a main event feud. And that gets me, as you can quite see, pumped up. If they have the match I think they're going to have, my brain is going to explode. And I don't want that, I'll be dead. We then had a little bit of a tease that maybe at some point there is going to be some issues between Jericho and MJF, because we were going to have an inner circle backstage skit here, and they were so mad given what had happened earlier. But just as Le Champion was about to talk, Maxwell got in there instead, and he just went off on one. Jericho got his words in as well, and the big point is, next week on Winter is Coming, biggest Dynamite ever, it's going to be Chris Jericho versus Frankie Kazarian. That's okay, nice and easy. Up next was Shida versus Anna Jay for the AEW Women's Champion, and this is what I'm talking about. We had a video beforehand that may as well have just been flashing text going, this championship is really important, and we believe in these two competitors. So when they got into it, I went, oh my gosh, this championship is really important, and I'm into these two competitors. I mean, I'm easily led, but still, up. Jay was joined by some members of the Dark Order, of course, but she was also joined by Ty Conte, and we still don't know where her head is at. And while this started with a little bit of a shoving contest, Anna Jay then went for a submission right out of the gates, and man did Shida not like that, because she then smashed out a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker, and I love a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker. It's just so spinny. Like any good challenger, Anna then focused on Shida's knee, especially because that had been injured in the weeks prior to this, and that's when the shenanigans started. As Anna Jay said to Ty Conte, please give me a chair, but because Ty Conte is still a good person, she's like, oh, I don't really know what to do, and her hesitation allowed the referee to turn around and said, well, that's not happening, not in my championship match. However, what they did not see, because they were doing this, is that John Silver handed Anna Jay a kendo stick, and she slammed it right into Shida's leg, and it made you go, wait a minute. Are we about to change the Women's World Championship? I mean, the answer was no, but I thought it could have been yes. From that point on, the winner was clear, because if you were going to do it, that would be the time, and eventually Shida hit her running knee, which had double importance this time because you thought it was injured and she wasn't going to be able to do it, and she is still your Women's Champion. But honestly, if you want to see the evolution of a pro wrestler, go and watch Anna Jay's first attempt, and then go watch her here. She, like other people we've already discussed, has all the potential in the world. And even then, we weren't done. Now, I am going to sound a little bit like a hypocrite here, but I don't care. As long as I'm aware of these things, I feel like we can just move past it and pretend otherwise. Because as Shida was celebrating at the top of the aisleway, who do you think came out to stake her claim for a championship shot? It was none other than Abaddon. Now, I do know it's much better when we build up characters instead of just having out and going, can I have a title shot, Pete? Which all companies do a lot. But I think Abaddon is such a great character. And this was all so freaky, and Shida sold it so well, especially when she was like licking the title and there was blood everywhere. My brain went, I really want to see this match. And I was like, oh brain, I'm with you. Oh, I'm giving it a free pass. Abaddon is just great. Matt Hardy was then showcasing his new persona to the world. How many does this guy have? This one is one of my favorites though, because Mr. Hardy now believes that any kind of success or any kind of innovation or any kind of good that has happened to the pro wrestling world is because of Matt Hardy. He also told us that our challenges, our stupid plebs, are just pedestrian ones, and I just find him so entertaining. I mean, he's a loon, but my word, he makes for good television. I guess we'll see where this goes. Team Taz also sent a warning to Cody. You had Ricky Starks in the middle, and you had Brian Cage here, and you had Powerhouse Obs over here, and it kind of looked like the three evolutions of Pokemon. But they didn't even need Taz here. Ricky Starks was doing all the talking. They felt like such a good group. Count me in. Of all the things too, our main event was Pac and Phoenix taking on the Butcher and the Blade, and unbelievably, the Butcher and the Blade won. This was just great from start to finish, because not only did they brawl constantly, but Eddie Kingston was on commentary, and you already know how I feel about that. I saw a few people as well saying, well, I couldn't get into this because I wasn't sure who the faces and who the bad guys were. But who even cares about that? I know it's a little bit confusing, because at one point the Butcher and the Blade were having their ass kicked, but then Pac and Phoenix were also having their ass kicked. This was just four dudes who hated each other having a war. I mean, Phoenix and the Butcher were just having a fight in the ring at one point, even though neither guy was illegal men, and Pac got so fed up, he distracted the ref, which allowed Penta to just beat everybody up on the outside. I love Pac so much, he just doesn't care. It looked like Phoenix was going to finish all this off too, and then Eddie Kingston, damn Eddie Kingston, using his powers of foresight, he could see what was going to happen. He ran down to ringside, he distracted the referee again, and I do admit maybe there was one too many referee distractions on this Dynamite, but it allowed Butcher and Blade to hit their power bomb neckbreaker thingy, and yeah, they got the 1, 2, 3, and I even said in my lounge, well, I'll be damned because I didn't see it coming. If anybody heard that, they would have thought I was really weird. They all whooped ass after this because that's just what they're like, including Eddie Kingston hitting Pac with a DDT not once on a chair, but twice, because that's just what Eddie Kingston does. And hands up if you then said, well, I know who's going to make the save here, it's going to be Lance Archer. Everybody put your hands down. Nobody thought that was going to happen, but flippin' hell it did. Now I can only presume he's so desperate to get into a fight and start chucking people through ceilings, he finally saw his opportunity. But yeah, he was kind of on the side of Pac, Phoenix and Penta here, and I say kind of on the side, because is he really on the side of anyone? I even think he's going to attack Jake Roberts one day. However, if you do give me a good explanation next week, I will be pleased, because I wanted to see him back on Dynamite for ages. He's really got something and you don't want to lose that momentum, so I was very happy to see him back. And that's how Dynamite finished too. And if you were treating this like a go-home show for the pay-per-view, because next week we've got Winter Was Coming, biggest Dynamite ever, you did a tremendous job, hence why it got all ups and no downs. That's going to melt the comments, but I'm a transparent, honest guy. And when the 120 minutes was done, again, I looked around my house and went, I enjoyed it all. And when I enjoy it all, I'm going to stand here and enjoy it all. That was the least poetic thing I've ever said. But overall, if you can believe it, this episode of AEW is getting it up. Now, don't forget to leave a comment below and get really mad at me for doing this, and let me know what you thought of the show. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Head over to WhatCulture.com, read yourself some articles, follow WhatCulture on Twitter, WhatCulture WWE, and watch more videos here on WhatCulture, including NXT Ups and Downs later with my man Gareth. Welcome to the Ups and Downs Club. My name is Simon from WhatCulture. Thank you very much for joining me. See you soon.